Hey, welcome everybody. This is Dr. Jerry Bailey with Lakeside Holistic Health, and I'm live here tonight. Welcome, Dr. Terry Wahls.
Hey, how are you?
And I'm great. Thank you for being on my show here today. Got a couple things we're going to get started to talk about as people start showing up. Is Facebook does not endorse anything we'll be talking about tonight. It's part of our premises is we have to say these things now. And then also any information that we give tonight is just for education purposes. It does not constitute a doctor-patient relationship. We do suggest that you do seek advice with a qualified licensed provider with any information that we give you to make sure it's right for you. So once again, welcome to my show, Dr. Wahls, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm a professor of medicine here at the University of Iowa, and my big story is that I have progressive multiple sclerosis. I was diagnosed with 2000 on the basis of a new problem with my left leg. 13 years earlier, dim vision. I had a big workup and was found to have relapsing remitting MS. Being an academic doc, I sought out the best people I could find. Took the newest drugs and still steadily declined. Within 3 years, I needed chemotherapy and I had secondary progressive MS. At that point, there's no spontaneous recovery. I continued to decline. Then I took Tysabri, one of those new biologic drugs, costing about $50,000 a year. Continued to decline, was switched to a different immune suppressing agent. And that's really when I began to experiment and research and started experimenting on myself based on what I was reading in the basic science. I would ultimately create a diet and lifestyle program where I was combining the principles of functional medicine, paleo medicine, and what I had learned reviewing the science myself into what I call the Wahls Protocol. And after 1 year of this new intensive diet and lifestyle program, I'm out of the wheelchair, I'm walking around, I'm even able to do an 18-mile bike ride. And so this completely changes disease and health. It would change my clinical practice, and it would change the focus of my clinical research. So I created some new clinical programs. I created a new clinical research program, and I'm out on a mission now to teach others that if I can come back as severely disabled as I was, that they too would have a real possibility that they could get their lives back as well.
Yeah, and that's so true. A lot of what we see as practitioners in today in clinical practice is those chronic health conditions, those degenerative conditions that, like yours, that are occurring, and medicine's having a hard time keeping up with that. And that's, as you learned yourself there, is that experience with functional medicine, that experience with nutrition, of finding those underlying factors that are occurring in the body and correcting them. Did you do any specific functional medicine-based testing, like organic acids testing or hormone testing or anything like that when you were going through the process of discovering your protocol?
Actually, no, not at all. I did a very limited food allergy testing with 30 common allergens. That was it.
Okay.
Otherwise, I did homocysteine, and I really just focused on diet and lifestyle changes. Now, interestingly enough, in 2002, 2 years after my diagnosis, my Cleveland Clinic doctors told me about the ancestral health movement and Lauren Cordain. And I, after 20 years of being a vegetarian, went to the paleo diet, gave up all grains, all legumes, all dairy, and still continued downhill. But I did figure out if I missed my vitamins, I did worse. So I stayed on the paleo diet. I began to add some vitamins and supplements. But it wasn't until I combined functional medicine, ancestral health, and what I was learning that I really had this major healing.
Phenomenal. Yeah, that's what we see a lot in practice too, is those simple lifestyle things, or not always simple lifestyle things, is getting people to change those things and the psychology behind it, of changing what they're doing, getting away from that processed food diet, the high grain diet, and really into way of eating and lifestyle, so that way they're getting that nutrient density, as Cordain discovered through research, that density is there in that whole food based diet versus that low high calorie diet and low nutrient diet that's that standard American diet.
Yeah, I think the principles are simple, but they're very hard to do because we're so addicted to sugar and white flour in the sedentary lifestyle. That's tough. Simple, but very
it is. It is. It's very hard. And actually, my yoga instructor, Jen, just came on. She's teaching tonight, and she said hello to everybody. She says hello to you. There, we'll kind of show, see if that pops up on there. And Jennifer was a bit, yeah, you see that popping up there? That's kind of a cool little feature that they have here. So yeah, she popped up. She was vegetarian also and got very sick, and we were able to kind of move her over to that Paleolithic style of eating, and she recovered significantly and is back to being healthy also. And that's a lot what we see in clinical practice, is getting those changes in the diet, which is very difficult for a lot of people because of that addiction to sugar from the grain sources, from the other foods that they're exposed to in the processed food world. That's really hard, that addiction to that sugar and that chemical changes from that in the brain that occur.
Yeah.
Have you explored that a lot with some of the research you've done?
Well, it's very clear that a high sugar, high grain diet releases more dopamine, releases more pleasure, and so it's very addicting. And if you look at the animal models for sugar addiction, nicotine, alcohol, cocaine addiction, the same parts of our brain lights up. So it is really not surprising that when we stop gluten or sugar or dairy for that matter, that we experience irritability, we experience craving, and we slip up. Our brain rationalizes all those reasons why we should go back to eating that perfectly yummy, perfectly delicious food that wrecks our health.
Exactly. And that's the hard part for people to give up, is that addiction there, and taking them that 21 days, 4 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks to change their diet, to getting to that more healthy based diet of and fruits and good lean meats, kind of following your protocol essentially that you did.
You know, I spent a fair amount of time in my book talking about the need to control the environment, get the harmful foods out of your environment, out of your house, out of your working environment, and to have your eating experiences with people who will follow the diet with you, so you aren't having to watch other people eat foods that you miss, that you really like, and you wish that you were eating. So it's helpful to really clean up your eating environment for as long as it's going to take you to get through this addiction period, which for most people is a couple of years, really. Yeah,
definitely. And that's a huge thing we see in clinical practice too, that you're mentioning that people don't get, is that community involvement in helping you get through the process. If you're the only one doing it within your family, and you're going home to your family and saying, hey, my doctor had said I need to stop eating this way and eat this more vegetable-based and lean meat and grass-fed and nuts, berries, seeds, foods, and the other family's like, well, I'm still going to eat my pizza and crackers and chips. It doesn't work really, man. It makes it much more difficult. So counseling. Go ahead.
I'll talk about if I had somebody who's doing crack or cocaine or alcohol, I have them leave that environment behind them. It's the very rare individual who can stop those addictive compounds still living in the crack house or living with alcoholics. They have to get out of the environment. And that seems to generate a big aha moment for a lot of families. Like, okay, I see this. Now, when you're away from that family member, yes, eat what you want, but don't come home and talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. And surviving that environment and making sure the environment around you, your support group is all there with the process of getting better and supporting you and making sure, which is beneficial for them too, because then they start improving their health and they start feeling better. And then they want to work with the person too. Yeah, which is excellent.
It makes it easier.
So, and this is definitely not just for MS. You yourself worked through your progressive MS, but this is for a lot of different diseases and other health conditions too. Yeah. So
for
tell some of the ones that are for.
For many years, we worked at the VA and created a therapeutic lifestyle clinic where we use these principles. And to come to see me in clinic, you need to have a medical problem, mental health problem, or neurologic problem, and be willing to diet and lifestyle. So people get referred. We were so successful. I got to the point where I had a 9-month waiting list to get in. And we saw things like metabolic problems, diabetes, obesity, fatty liver disease, autoimmune problems like lupus, RA, myasthenia, psoriasis, and mental health issues, severe PTSD, anxiety, depression, bipolar. And then in my online community, where I have thousands and thousands of followers, I've had a number of folks with kids who had behavioral problems, autism, that were helped. And recently I've had a number of folks with ALS report that they've been significantly helped as well. So wide variety of problems that addressing diet and lifestyle will reduce symptoms, probably reduce pain, improve energy, improve mood, and likely reduce the need for many of your prescription meds.
Yeah, true. That's across the board with interesting from being also like yourself, an educator, myself being an educator too, is as we're learning this and getting deeper into the basic sciences and the inflammatory sciences behind these, that a lot of these conditions are related to inflammatory markers and inflammatory processes occurring in the body. And so changing the diet and getting more nutrients in attenuates those inflammatory processes and cytokines in the system. So that way we're not getting these flags popping up and showing issues that are going on with patients.
You know, I'm an old enough old fart that when I went to medical school, we were really taught that these disease states were all very distinct and different from one another. But as our basic science has gotten better and we could understand the cellular physiology, and we see that mitochondrial dysfunction is common across many of these disease states, nearly all of them, and that inappropriate excessive inflammation is common across many of these states, nearly all of them, and that excessive levels of heavy metals, plastics, solvents stored in our fat is also quite common. That if we address those three fundamental principles to improve mitochondrial function, improve the processing of our stored toxins, and use these inflammatory foods, cellular function improves, symptoms decline, and the need for many of our prescriptions steadily decline as well. And so it used to drive my medical colleagues crazy that I was using the same dietary principles for every disease. They say, you know, Terry, it can't be that simple. And I'm like, well, it's just how it works out. And so now more physicians are, God, it really is.
Yeah, truthfully it is. And that's the main thing we do in clinic and that we teach and then also teach with my students also is diet's always number one. If we can get diet corrected with a lot of people, all these, you know, across the board conditions or symptoms tend to decline. We see less inflammation, we see less glucose dysregulation, we see less pain, we see all that occur there. And like you had mentioned too, is that storing within the fat, within the adipose body of those environmental chemicals and pollutants that we're exposed to day to day, that we see that sometimes with patients too, as they start this process sometimes, and you may have noticed this too with some, is that they get a little sicker for a few weeks as that fat is melting down and it's releasing those toxins into the liver to work with.
Yeah, we have to help them with that as they go through that initial detox. You know, I have also learned that a lot of people don't know how to cook anymore or never learned. And don't know how to begin. Many of the people that I would take care of in the VA have very limited resources, so money is a big issue. Energy to do the work is a big issue. So a big part of my lifestyle clinic was our cooking classes, teaching people how to cook. And that, you know, if you can't afford grass-fed, you can't afford organic, that's okay. You're going to start out with conventionally grown food, clean it as well as you can. And over time, you will just improve the quality of the food according to what your budget will allow. I also learned that, you know, people could implement my protocol and save money in the process if we pay a lot of attention of how to avoid food waste and teaching them how to cook at home.
Yes. Yeah. Food's always number one. We had this great question pop up and I'll let you take it if you want to. It popped up here is, what kind of mitochondrial supplementation would you suggest? And it's kind of a big deal with triathletes, particularly in my community. I see a lot of triathletes, but you know, what kind of supplements do you typically recommend for those?
You know, I would say the vast majority of folks who are going to benefit from supplements are those who have a crappy diet because their bodies are so starved for nutrients. If we have the diet completely tuned, the benefit from the supplements are going to be much smaller.
True.
The foods that I'm going to want people to stress are organ meats, heart once a week, liver a couple times a week, great sources of ubiquinone that'll be well absorbed. Now, you will want to get some real basic labs, a vitamin D level, get your vitamin D tuned up so it's in the top half of the class. You'd like to know what your homocysteine is and adjust your B vitamin levels to get your homocysteine down to between 4 and 7. Those are really important. Cod liver oil can be very helpful. And so those are the things that I'd recommend. But I really would rather people stress on food. And that for the vast majority of folks, even our triathletes, liver and heart and good food will be absolutely the most important thing for them to be doing.
Yeah, completely agree on that. For myself, I can do liver, heart. That's just one I can't do. But that, the organ meats are hard for some people to do. I grew up eating liver Asian, so that one doesn't bother me. But some of the things I may use also with athletes, particularly my more higher level endurance athletes for the Ironman half and above, marathoners and ultra distances, I will use a little bit more supplementation with them. I'll use Mito PQQ, which is a wonderful little product to help stimulate that mitochondria. I also use some other products from a few of the companies that actually give those nutrients, B vitamins, CoQ10, those type ones, to really help feed those mitochondria to make sure that aerobic chain is working really well to produce ATP for them. There's just a couple of things I add in there. For my strength athletes, I'll tend to use HMB, which is a pretty good product to help cut down protein breakdown within the muscle tissue. And that one is actually safe for ADA requirements, so they're not going to test positive for anything during anything they'll do. So that's always key that we have to look at for athletes, is making sure their testing is ADA compliant and there's not any contaminants in there that are going to cause them to have a positive test, which is we see regularly occurring in sports is athletes, well, I was taking the supplement and I'm testing positive now for this stuff. So we always try to use products, and I know you do also, that are third-party tested to make sure they're safe and don't have contaminants in them.
Very important. And a lot of the supplements are being made in China. And many of these are being made from genetically modified bacteria. So we're all going to have to pay lots of attention all the time to what's going on with these.
Yeah, and making sure they're getting tested, third-party tested, to make sure the quality is there for them. That's always key for there. So you have a new book coming out, which is Cooking for Life, I think it is, following the. So tell us a little about
Cooking for Life. And it's really inspired after running my lifestyle class for so many years, how teaching people how to cook was really critical for them to afford eating for health. And people needed to learn that it's easy to cook. It's not hard. It's fun. You can make great food in under 30 minutes. And you can do this without breaking the bank. So I want to be sure that this is affordable to people who have limited resources and affordable to people who have limited energy.
Yeah. When is your book set to come out?
April 4th. It'll be a big day.
April 4th. Yes. Big build-up coming up for the next month for you. Yeah.
Lots of interviews, lots of podcasts, a lot of articles. So I'm really pleased to have had the chance to speak with your audience.
Yeah, I am too. I'm glad you're able to come on here. So yeah, definitely get her book. Pre-order is going to be on Amazon, or where can they pre-order it from?
On my website, terrywahls.com, we've got a link to a whole host of online retailers, and we have a link to some free gifts that people can pick up the book, then go pick up their free gifts. And we have a nice little set of tools to help people get accelerated in their healing journey. And all that is live tonight. I was on it earlier to be sure that it's working. So terrywahls.com, and you'll see it.
Okay, yeah, everybody go to terrywahls.com and get signed up there to get notifications, get her wonderful tools on there that she has, and then also get pre-order that book so you can make sure you have it. We're going to definitely go on and get it and get a couple copies for each of our office here. You have some wonderful recipes in the book.
Great recipes in the book.
What's your favorite one?
Well, actually, I really like liver and onions a whole lot. I like liver pate a whole lot. And I'm very fond of skillet meals. So I have a chapter on how to make your whole meal in a skillet. So less cleanup, less work. It's fast. It's all there. And that's my go-to meal time and time again.
Good. Good, good, good. Now, you're also involved with a couple research studies at Bastyr University, and then also at the University of Iowa where you are at. And I'm getting these all posted up here on the page too. I think I'm trying to get it posted here. Yeah, it should be popping up there for everybody. There's a couple articles there. So tell us about the studies that you're involved with and how they can get involved to help make the studies grow.
The Bastyr studies are really great. These anyone from all over the world could do. They're a quality of life study. You complete surveys twice a year. And it's a great look at the impact of diet and lifestyle on MS and on Parkinson's. The study that I'm running is a study that compares a swank diet, low saturated fat diet, and the Wahls diet, a modified paleo diet, to people who have MS and fatigue. And we have the opportunity to have 100 people in the study. We've got 75 folks that are already sort of through the pipeline and scheduled, so we still have 25 slots. And I encourage your audience to sign up, get screened, and see if they'd be eligible.
Yeah, I posted that on there for them to link on those. The one for Bastyr for MS, Bastyr for Parkinson's, and then the National MS Society, another one with the University of Iowa there for Parkinson's. It looks like, or no, that's another MS one there too. And MS also, affected my family, and so your story really struck home with me. My aunt had passed away years and years ago, but she had MS, and I had the unfortunateness of watching her deteriorate through the years and just watch medicine not help her progress. And that was part of some of the things I saw growing up that made me go into the alternative medicine or the more functional based medicine, was seeing that and wanting to do more and figure out why things are occurring. And that's really what functional medicine does, is figuring out that why with people, is getting to that root cause as best we can to find out why and then trying to correct it there.
And it really helps people understand through the functional medicine lens and the paleo lens, how my lifetime of diet and lifestyle choices, environmental exposures impacted my health. So I need to understand why, if I'm going to give up the food that I love, the habits that I love, and make these big changes, because nobody's going to make these changes. They're that difficult. Like just say, do that for your health. They need to really understand the connection to be willing to go through all the hard work to make these changes.
Exactly. Got a great question that just popped up here from actually a friend of mine, Dr. Michael McCall in Portland, Oregon. And he says, did you experience a change in your palate with organ meat? He has a tough time in getting organ meats in. So
So one thing was I learned how to cook them. Growing up, overcooked everything, and they were probably pretty miserable to eat. I've since learned how to cook them in a way so that they're tender, they're much more delicious that way. And I've also learned how to hide them in other dishes so they aren't quite so apparent. And I talk about that in the book, how to just gradually increase this in. And that, heart is really easy to eat because it just tastes like a really lovely steak. And if you like shellfish, oysters, mussels, clams also count as organ meat. Tongue is another organ meat that is quite delicious as well. So there are quite a number.
My father-in-law
that I think people would enjoy that count as organ meat and are not as strong as liver. But if you leave the liver medium rare, it's much tastier. If it still seems a little difficult, then I serve it with guacamole and some hot sauce on top, and that really makes it, much tastier. We got another question here, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name because I'll probably ruin it. But it says, hello to both of us. Says, how should the diet for MS be varied for an adult versus a kid? So the kid needs fewer calories in the day. But it's really the same principles. They're going to need to have lots of vegetables, get rid of the sugar, get rid of the white flour, and have sufficient meat. Now, if you're dealing with children's issues, I would ask for a nutrition consult to be sure that you're keeping track of enough calorie intake and that growth is continuing. Because there's so much inflammation in the body, when people adopt my diet, there is weight loss because you're losing water weight. and that can be a little alarming for kids at first. They just need to see that transient dip in weight is very transient, then the growth continues. The other very common error that parents can make is they get the kids on the program because they're young, they heal more quickly, they're doing great, and they're doing great now, let's say for 6 months, a year, 2 years, and the parents begin to feel bad that my child is missing out on all these yummy foods that their friends get to eat, and they're doing so well. I think I can let them go to that special event and have that special food that will have gluten and dairy in them, cake and ice cream or pizza and ice cream, and the child experiences a flare of their MS or other autoimmune problems. And then their conventional physician might say, see, I told you diet doesn't do anything. And of course, my interpretation is, see, I told you diet does everything. Stop the diet, symptoms come back. And so I spend a lot more time explaining that if you get benefit when you stop your effective treatment, which is following the diet and the protocol, expect a disease flare.
Exactly. And that's the same options we see, or same things we see with patients is keeping it clean for a while, let's add it back in, see how it respond, and they usually get a return of symptoms. And it was like, there's that confirmatory response that we're looking for that shows that's causing an issue in your health.
Yeah, that can be very helpful with kids. If you do this with a child and their brain lights up with all these aggressive lesions, it's very scary for parents, and their neurologist will say, we have to put you on these very potent disease-modifying drugs forever. Yeah. And you have to have big conversations. So I try to spend a lot more time about how important it is, if you get benefit, to realize that when you stop the diet, your previous symptoms will likely come back. Yeah, exactly. We got a little question here from Chris, and it says, I just started your Paleo Plus protocol last week. What types of results have you seen with people suffering from chronic Lyme disease, chronic fatigue, etc.? Thank you for giving me some hope. I've had many folks with chronic fatigue and with flaxacin, Cipro syndrome, Loquin problems, and chronic Lyme tell me that they had been seeing their functional medicine integrative health provider for years, not getting much better. And they may have been on antibiotics for a long time for their Lyme's disease, not getting much better. And they start my protocol and begin to turn things around. So what my protocol does so beautifully is it addresses the terrain, the health of the cell, the health of the whole organism. So when you have healthier cells, healthier mitochondria, we can begin to have the benefit of self-correcting chemistry. So it's a slow process. The chronic fatigue people, the myalgic encephalitis, they do well. It's a slow process. The Levaquin folks are turning around. They do better. Again, it's a slow process. The same with Lyme's disease. But if you've been going downhill for years, to suddenly realize you're not going downhill, and in fact things are slowly improving, it's not very exciting. Now, the rate of recovery, the speed of their recovery will probably be slower than what I had. For those particular conditions, but I'd still be very, very optimistic that recovery is possible. I recently had a rash of folks with ALS who are reporting very nice stabilization of their disease, and their conventional neurologists are like, well, you're doing remarkably well. You must have a really, really, really slowly progressive form of their illness. And the patients tell me that they are measuring their steps, how many steps they're taking all the time with their Fitbit. They're like, it's not slowing down. I'm getting better. I have more exercise tolerance. So I still would like to have my ALS folks see a functional medicine doc, but I want to encourage them that there's every reason to think that diet and lifestyle can have a huge impact for ALS.
Yes. I got a couple more questions here, and then we'll let you go for the night here. So Markel Brown here, she asked, when being strict with the diet in an MS patient, can the lesions repair?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and the other thing I want to point out to people is lesions will repair when they are young, less than 2 years old. After that, they become scars. You're going to have them forever. Lesions don't really matter. Lesions don't predict the level of disability. They don't predict function. It's far more important to pay attention to, is your function improving? Is your energy improving? Is your thinking ability improving? Is your stamina and strength improving? That is vastly more important than lesion load. I am dramatically better. My brain MRI has not changed. My neurologist was terribly disappointed. So was I. We both realized that, okay, those lesions had been around there for a long time, many years. They aren't going to change. But clearly my brain has been rewiring itself, repairing itself, and my function is remarkably better. Now, there is more papers coming in the MS world that is validating what I'm showing, that lesions come and go. The lesions that hang on for more than 2 years are going to stay. But your brain can continually repair stuff that within the first 2 years. Yeah, that plasticity of the brain is just amazing, how it can repair itself and change. And, you know, they really see it when kids have traumatic brain injury or loss of brain function, how it can rewire pretty quickly in them versus as we get older, it's a little slower process. But again, that brain is a living organ, always changing and dynamically changing itself in interactions and memories and function there. Well, you know, and think about this. We break our bones. And we can get stem cells together and we can repair this bone and we'll remodel it and we'll keep remodeling according to the forces across that bone and weight bearing. Our tissues will repair. We have to get rid of the stuff that's interfered with the stem cells and make sure it has all the proper building blocks. We have stem cells in our brain that can repair. And there's more evidence coming in that's mediated through the microglia. And you can rebuild your myelin, you can rebuild synapses. And what mediates that? Diet is number one, lifestyle is number two. Exactly, yeah. You know, perfectly put. Diet. There's a stem cell lecture group that I went to, and I spoke with them. Great set of folks. I think stem cells can be very helpful, and very helpful, particularly for orthopedics. They had some interesting lectures on stem cells for people with progressive illnesses, Alzheimer's, MS. They were very excited about their videos of people with progressive MS getting better. And they were, and it was encouraging. And then I gave my talk, no stem cells, just my protocol. And of course, my videos before and after were just like, you know, really quite remarkable. So you can spend $8,000 to $10,000 every month for new stem cells, not change your diet and lifestyle. Get a little bit better after 24 months of stem cells, or and a lot of money. Wahls Protocol, and be remarkably better after 12. Yeah, perfect. Love it. Markel says thank you. One more question here from Rachel, and it's what is the healthiest oil to cook with when cooking up like a vegetable stir fry? Oils you do not cook with. Oils, there you go. If you heat them above 180 degrees. You damage the healthful attributes of that oil. Oils you use cold. The only oils that I would use would be olive oil on my salad dressing. You might use flax oil or hemp oil as part of that salad dressing. If you're going to heat your oil, it should be saturated fat, and that is solid at room temperature. So things like coconut oil, ghee, or clarified butter, lard, tallow, duck fat, chicken fat. Good. Olive oil is delicious, cold. Don't ruin your lovely olive oil by heating it. Yeah. One more question here from Raquel, and then we'll get going for the night here. A couple more announcements there. And she said, when beginning the diet with a new patient, do you start with the raw foods if they haven't been able to eat very many things? You know, if they don't tolerate a wide variety of foods, I actually spend a lot of time on bone broth, soups, and stews to heal the gut first. And then when I'm confident the gut is healed, then we'll begin to introduce more raw types of foods. And that might be salads or smoothies. But in the beginning, it's soup, stews, and bone broth for someone who has any kind of gut issues. Yeah, definitely, because if that gut is not functioning properly, dysbiosis or anything else,
or intestinal permeability issues, they're not going to absorb very well anyways.
They won't tolerate the raw foods.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to be it tonight. I want to thank you for being on tonight with me, Dr. Wahls. It's been a pleasure having you. Up there was just put, if you're interested in getting an email newsletter from us for when our further live broadcasting that we'll have, sign up there. Go to Dr. Wahls' website, terrywahls.com, and you can get signed up for her new book coming out, get that ordered through there. You can also get a lot of information from her stuff to help you get healthier through her protocols, which is a fantastic way to get yourself well, which is number one, diet, like you said, and number two, lifestyle, and your surroundings there, which is excellent. Everybody's coming through here saying thank you for everything, for being on with us tonight here. So again, there's also posted through the links there, or through the chat portion there, is the 3 studies that Dr. Wahls is involved with Bastyr University and where she is in Iowa. So go ahead and get signed up for those if you're interested in helping out, and they need people to help with that, with those conditions, so they can track better and make sure we get the data out there, because that's one thing we need in the research world to really show what we're doing and prove it. That research, that's such a beneficial thing that we need, and you're out there doing it, which we're very thankful for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on.
Hail to the kale.
There you go. Hail to the kale. All right, everybody. Thank you very much, and we'll see you guys soon. There'll be another broadcast here in another week or so. And Dr. Terry, thank you so much for being on, and good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you. Bye-bye now.